Welcome to season 2 of It Takes a Family, a podcast that helps take parenting from desperation to hope. I'm one of your hosts, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hi, Kelly.
I'm your co-host, Kelly. Once a week, we highlight experts and other parents like you who have been in the trenches of parenting, bringing hard lessons learned and insights on how to navigate even the most difficult of family circumstances.
This season is super fun, and we're tackling Gen Z mental health crisis head on. We're using research by Dr. Stephanie Shackelford and the Barna group and her report on that. And so really a really wonderful season so far.
Yes. Excited to be here. So we've broken down the season into 6 vital themes, everything from navigating technology to caring for our own health as parents. We're splitting each topic into 2 parts. So in part 1, we look at the data with Dr. Shackelford, and in part 2, we bring in a guest to show us how to make that research practical in our own homes, which is no small task.
That is no small task. And these 6 vital themes are brought from Stephanie's report. And so today's episode, we're in the second part of her report, referring to support the guardians. So it's exciting to have this. And we've got Stephanie back here with us. And so welcome, Stephanie. We're so glad that you're here and so thankful for you. All right. So we know about the family you grew up in and the family you lead now. But so as we're kind of keep going on this, we want to ask a question kind of like is in line with today's theme. So we're talking about parenting and guardians and supporting guardians. So something that your parents did that you've like sort of taken into your own parenting journey, something hopefully positive.
Yes. Well, my parents were always hosting people and having people over for dinner. And I think because I was an only child, they just always wanted to invite friends over, families over. And so that's something that we've continued in our home. And my in-laws actually have done and continue to do the same thing. So for John and I both, that's something that's been a big value in our own family is having other people at our house and hosting them.
And I have eaten like the food that you guys cook when this happens.
Mainly John cooks.
The whole family. It's a family affair and it's good food and you guys do it. You do that really, really well. So, all right. So we're talking today, Support the Guardians. And this is the second chapter in your report. I think it's a really important idea and concept that we get to as we think about Gen Z. We don't just think about how to fix the kids, but we really think about sort of parents. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Why don't you tell us, you wrote it. What do you mean by Support the Guardians? Kind of what are we getting after today?
Yeah, well, that was a great summary. So.
I thought so too.
Yes, I think there is a lot of focus, rightly so, on the Gen Z mental health crisis and teens and their mental health. But one thing that hasn't been maybe explored as much is how are their caregivers, their parents, their guardians doing? And what we see in the research is that just the same amount of parents are struggling with anxiety and depression at the same rates as their teens are. And so the mental wellness and well-being of parents and caregivers is just equally important to acknowledge, and how can they care for themselves as they care for their kids.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes sense, right? Like if you as a parent are struggling, like it has the potential to be passed down to your child, right? And so if I want to be, if I want to help my kid, I need to have something to sort of help them with. It seems to make sense to me. But I find that even in like a super technology and like sort of connected world, people are not super willing to like reach out and ask for help. So talk a little bit, I don't know how the research bared in this, but like why is there a hesitancy among not Gen Z, but this would be millennials and Gen Xers to like reach out to people when they're having a hard time? Yeah,
well, parents today are very lonely. So one report showed that 65% of parents say that they're lonely. And then 41% of parents say that most days they're so stressed they can't function. So when you're living with that level of stress, it's kind of hard to get beyond that to even think, okay, what can I do to help relieve this stress is one
Yes.
thing. I think the other thing too, what we're seeing is parents are feeling this sort of paralysis. There's so much information out there.
Right.
And so many experts saying different things that it can almost feel like I don't even know what next step to take. Google isn't providing answers that are being helpful or something. And so I think those are definitely factors that come into play. Another thing was there was a survey done recently with Barna on the state of today's family. And the number one stressor for parents is financial for all parents, single parents, married parents, all. But the number two was addressing my own mental health and self-care. So that's a very big stressor for parents across the board of even they're taking on a lot of weight of trying to address their kids' self-care and mental health, but they don't really know how to address their own.
So I'm sitting here thinking, like, I think your themes, the 6 themes that we're going to talk through as the season goes, I think they sort of bleed into one another.
They do, yes.
Do you think that technology has played a role in this sort of, like, whatever that state, like 64% loan, whatever that
lonely,
really
yeah,
great
yeah.
stat? Like, do you think
Yeah.
that is what? Do you have a concept, or was there something in the research that showed like why that might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are all connected in terms of we're so connected virtually and have all the breadth of relationships, I suppose, but not
Right.
the depth.
Yeah.
And so even knowing who to turn to in times of crisis or stress, having that relational depth is very uncommon in today's age of just social media connections or just even just texting, but just the in-person, real life, face-to-face connection is just really lacking across the board.
Yeah, I mean, even the third one is about connectedness.
Yes,
Spoiler
yes.
alert: the third one's about connectedness. Again, for your teen, but I mean, it goes to like if I don't have good friends that I can rely on in times of struggle, then like how do I
Yeah.
expect that my kids would
Yeah.
do that? Like I'm modeling for my kids when things are hard for me. I have folks to reach out to. I've got a faith community.
Yeah.
I've got
Well, and I know, Stephanie, I heard you speak recently, and you were talking about the health of a community. Is you look to the kids and how are
Yes.
the kids doing? So I mean, you see the kids are struggling, but it's maybe because the parents are struggling because it's
A
just
wider
all-
societal, we're all
Yeah.
struggling, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's research that also shows that depressed teens are more likely, actually 5 times more likely to have a depressed parent, and anxious teens are 3 times more likely to have an anxious parent. And this is not at all to blame the parents.
I was about to say, are we implying that the inverse is true?
I don't know about the inverse, but I know
Okay.
that there's a correlation between a parent to the child.
Okay.
And again, it's not to blame at all, but
Yeah.
it's to show
Yeah.
that when parents or caregivers, guardians don't know how to start to uncover their own
Right.
struggles,
Right.
that teens are likely to kind of take that on themselves and either blame themselves, or if it's not talked about, they try to just make up a narrative of what's going on, or it makes teens less ready to talk about their own struggles. And so just the importance of parents being honest of where they are. And it's not the
Right.
fact that you're struggling, it's the fact that you can talk about it and you're actively trying to seek how to approach that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to go like a little bit different direction here for a minute. One of the things in your report I think is a really helpful tool or helpful topic to discuss. You talk about authoritative versus authoritarian versus permissive parenting.
Yes.
Do you mind like defining those and kind of giving us a picture of which is the good one?
Yes, it's a spectrum. So on one side you got permissive.
Okay.
On the other side you have authoritarian, which is not to be confused with the middle one, authoritative. So, they could have come up with
Right.
more distinguished terms.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't me that came up with the term.
Okay.
So
Good. So I can make fun of them a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's not helping me.
And this is based on, I think they started doing this research back in the 70s, maybe. It's
Okay.
not like this is new thing. This is really
Okay.
proven. And permissive parenting would be a lot of warmth, a lot of connection, but not a lot of rules or discipline or regulation. Authoritarian would be opposite. So really lack of warmth and connection, but a lot of rules, a lot of discipline. And in the middle is what we're aiming for is authoritative, which is high warmth, but also high structure and
Okay.
high expectations, follow through, discipline. And so what a child needs is a balance of the two of, the ranch calls it nurture and
I was
structure.
just saying, back to season 1, we spend a lot of time on nurture and structure and connection.
Yes, and so that's what a child really needs. And research shows again and again that a child is best suited to flourish when they have parents that are modeling authoritative parenting.
Okay.
And I think what we're seeing a lot more, you're always going to have parents on one end of the spectrum or the other. What we're seeing a lot more is a move towards permissive parenting right now. A lot of focus on connection with the child, which is so good and necessary. Right. But the kind of boundaries can fall by the wayside. Yeah. And that's just really not helpful for a child's development, because that's putting the child in control of their own boundaries and regulations, which is actually very stressful for them. Sure. Yes, and does not help them flourish. They're always going to push against boundaries, but they need to know they're there in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how I want to say this. I mean, because part of my challenge in the Nelson home at times is like there are times where it's hard to connect, and then when there's not that relationship, and I place a boundary, because I think we do have boundaries and consequences in our home. It can kind of feel authoritarian. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that struggle for a parent of, I'm having a little bit of my own issues, right? I carry into this day all of my own issues. And then I walk in and I'm having a hard time connecting with the kid. There are books and there are places and things that I've read that would say, you have to connection over correction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
do you just make that up?
No, somebody else.
I didn't know. I thought it was pretty good. Okay.
And at some level, Stephanie, I think I'm in line with that connection over correction. But I also am but there's got to be structure. Yeah. I mean, what would you say if somebody said, no, it's connection over correction? How would you respond to that?
I just think we are so black and white. We really want it to be what do you do more? What do you do first?
Stephanie's don't
and you
put me in a
have
box.
to have both. It's a both and. Yeah. And I just think we're fed a lot of, if you're going to err, you really need to err on this side, and you can find people in both camps. And it really is both. You cannot have healthy boundaries without connection, but the connection is going to really fall flat and not lead to flourishing if you don't have appropriate boundaries. Yeah. And I think it really comes down to how we view authority. We just feel like authority is such a bad thing in our culture.
Right.
Yes.
But if we even just think from a Christian perspective for a moment of God as our authority, and he's the perfect, good father. Right. And yet he has expectations for us and to correction for our good. Yeah. And the same thing as us as parents is we have an authority for our child's good, and we're actually not helping them flourish when we don't establish some of the boundaries. But I think also we can't just take a snapshot. There's going to be sometimes you don't feel connected, but you still really need to be consistent with the boundary. Right. Yes. And there's other times when I can tell one of my children knows they did wrong. I don't need to necessarily really hammer it home. I can see kind of their face, and I can just really lean into the connection. And so, it's keeping the whole picture in mind.
Yes. It's not in that one moment.
Yes.
You gotta, for sure.
So I find it's much easier to identify where somebody else is than where I am.
No way,
right?
Really?
There's a counselor I've worked with. He's our eyes face out. It's much easier to see in other people than it does in ourselves. But how do you identify where you are? Because I can look and go, oh, they are way too permissive, or they're authoritarian. I'm glad I'm not a kid in that house. But but I also lack things. How would you help somebody identify kind of where they are in that spectrum and how to kind of move the pendulum?
Yeah. Well, we kind of either tend to model what our parents did or we rebel against what our parents did. Okay. So that's a good first question. I was how were you parented? Was it very authoritarian and you didn't feel like your emotional needs were met? You weren't connected with? And has that led you to maybe swing to the other side of the pendulum with your own children?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or did you grow up in a very permissive house and you were having to set your own rules and boundaries, and now you want to go the other way? So, or are you just kind of following the patterns generation after generation of your family? We can do that too. So that's kind of a first maybe diagnostic question to look at.
That's great.
That's helpful. What are some of the things that are hurting parents in today's culture. So as we think about supporting guardians, what are those things that maybe are paralyzing them or sort of hurting them as they walk this?
Well, I don't think we're very good at articulating what our goal of parenting is. Like if you think of like, what's your goal in raising your kids? I think most people would say they want their kids to be happy and healthy, which are great. I don't want no parent wants their kids to be miserable or unwell.
Sad and unwell is what I want for my children.
I'm doing great.
We have to cut the podcast and go to some deeper conversation.
Right.
But I think when we put happiness as the aim, that really does a disservice because it's really not realistic that your child's always going to be happy with you or with the world around them or circumstances. And so we need something deeper, really they're flourishing. And sometimes we flourish through hard things because that develops resilience and we learn to persevere and we can lean into that as a family. And sometimes we flourish in happy moments. And, and so I think that's just a question to ask of like, we're kind of being fed in culture of keep your kids happy. And that means that we can never wrestle with hard things.
Yeah.
So what is your goal in parenting?
I was afraid you're going to ask me this, Andy.
I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, what does flourishing mean for the Shackelford?
Well, we have a family motto, actually.
Oh,
That's on the fridge.
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
Breathe life. That's our one rule.
Breathe.
Is what you're doing, breathing life into others.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we say of, is it whether you're breathing life to yourself and speaking truth, you know, because we can tell ourselves lies of like, this is the worst day ever. Is it really the worst day ever? So breathing life is kind of our main thing. So I think we want to help raise children that are breathing out Christ's love to those around them and being able to receive that love as their foundation.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's really wonderful. I think part of the goal that I have found to be helpful for our family, nobody's asking, but let me tell you guys.
Tell us, Andy.
Do you have a catchy motto, Andy?
There is no
How
motto
does
on
the
our
Nelson
fridge.
home flourish?
But part of it is like trying to think about them as adults. So trying to think a little bit with the end in mind. Like, what do I hope to sort of see and have when they are 21, 22, 23 years old, 30, 40, and some of that's relationship. Like I desire to have a relationship with the children beyond the time that they're in our home. And so, but then also like, how do we equip them for, and we're like at a slightly different age, right? So my oldest is 16 and we're kind of like, that's 2 years until we go to college.
Real.
You're feeling it.
I better pick it up quick. But like, how do we prepare him for life and really what's coming at him? We've done the work back here, but like having that end in mind has been helpful for us. Of like, it's not just happy, because if our goal is happy, I have failed that goal every day, right?
Yeah.
But
With how many kids you have, there's no way everyone could be happy at the same time.
Yeah, your odds are
someone
not
is
good.
always unhappy, and typically, and often they're unhappy with us. And so, do we have the strength? Back to this, like, do we have the strength to be okay when they're mad at us? And that's part of what I feel like happens in this. Is you almost like need external support, whether it's a spouse or if you're a single parent, getting somebody in there to be like, you're okay. Like, that was the right call. Like, grounding them for a week. You're not the dumbest parent ever, right? I know they said that, but you're not, right?
Well, and I just think sometimes when you're in that role of having to give the hard consequence, you know, it sounds so bad to say, but it's almost like the fact that they don't like it is telling me I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? It's like, of course
that's what they need.
Right. So I know that sounds really crazy, but yeah. So.
All right. So a little bit different of a question, but like, what about the parent who says, hey, my kid's really struggling and I don't really feel like I've got it to help them? Like, what do we do to help our kids when they feel like they're breaking down, struggling, and we're feeling overwhelmed in and of ourselves? What are sort of like some ways that we could meet them in that?
Yeah. I don't know if this fully answered your question, but the first thing that came to mind was really just getting back to basic family rhythms. Like we really underestimate sleep, getting enough sleep,
right.
eating well, getting outside for walks and nature.
Yes.
Like these are very basic that I think we really overlook because we want really complicated answers
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
Like it
Well,
seems too simple.
ChatGPT tells us very complicated answers.
And so I think that just can be just really practical of like, can we just get back to basics and prioritize some very basic family habits?
Right.
And so that's kind of the first thing that came to
Yeah.
mind.
Yes.
That's good.
That research will show. I mean, countless studies show the impact of that.
Yes.
Yeah. And at what point for the parent would you say, because one of your topics also is like we see everything through a therapeutic lens, or particularly Gen Z does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but at what point for a parent, like, does it make sense to go, hey, yeah, some outside help might also be helpful.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, a healthy meal, a walk outside, and
Sleep.
Yeah.
sleep are wonderful. And do you have kind of a thought for you, like, oh, this is the moment where I would say, yeah, you probably should
Yeah.
see a therapist.
I mean, I think if you're doing those basic things and you're still really struggling to function and things still feel out of control, that it's never a bad idea to reach out and get some outside perspective with of course, initially with your own community right there, but
Right.
then also professionally,
Yes.
just to add some added support, definitely. And I think that's important, like we talked about at the beginning, of being honest and vulnerable with your own children of like, hey, I'm struggling with this right now, but I am working on like getting help, and this is
Yes.
how, and that just takes a lot of the stress off the child, so they're not carrying that burden.
Yes.
And that they know and they see you putting in the work,
Yes.
and that encourages them to do the same if they were to ever get in a point like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we see that so often at the ranch with the children
Yes.
and families that we serve, when the child will actually make the comment like, my mom is really trying.
Right.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
she's working, and I don't want to let her down. 'cause
Yeah, it motivates
she's
me to
working."
do my
Yeah,
work too.
which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. There was one particular part in this chapter, and it talked particularly about moms and the role of
Yes.
moms. I was a little disappointed it talked less about dads. Talk a little bit about. I just found it to be a really fascinating. I know that moms are important. My mom was wonderful and very important in my life. My wife and my children's mom is very important, like the most important. And so talk a little bit about like kind of the research around moms and their value and importance in supporting their children.
Yeah, research will show there's been several Barna studies that have just really confirmed mom's really vital role in the family.
Yes.
And of course, if like a single dad is listening,
Yes.
they're going to be vital too.
Yes.
But 70% of kids identify their mom as their go-to person for really any conversation, honestly, but especially deep conversations and conversations of depth. Other research shows that dads find it really hard to talk about anxiety, depression, and doubts about faith.
Yeah.
They really don't know how to do that with their kids,
Yeah.
by and large. And so they feel very uncomfortable with some of those conversations. So kids kind of naturally turn to mom for that. So I think like applauding moms for leaning in
Right.
and gently encouraging dads to step in a little more when they're
Yes.
able.
Well, I'll be less gentle. Like we need to step up, right? I mean, I do think it draws out two things. One, yes, moms are vitally important, and like children need a safe place, and oftentimes the mom provides that warmth and safety. And it would behoove us to have a generation of dads that like also see themselves as like willing and able to hold space with a child in a challenging moment and not dismiss and not, put that away. We don't talk about that here. Be a man, conceal, don't feel.
Is that Elsa quote?
That is an Elsa reference. A lot of Elsa in our home right this second. So I think that like, yes, I want to affirm.
And
what you're
even when
saying.
it's weird and uncomfortable and you don't know what to say, but like I loved how you said just holding space. Like that's really all it is. You don't have to have the answers. The kids just want to have someone to go to.
And we're dumb and I'm in generally and we just like feel like we need to have the answer and we got to fix it, and just like it's okay. You just you don't have to fix it, and you just can listen and talk to your kid, and if we see it as, all right, this moment I have to fix this thing that's broken, it's transactional, like it's a relationship with a kid, and so you can follow up. You can say different things tomorrow.
And you can just say that's an
question.
opportunity to connect. It's like, it's not an opportunity to give the answer. It's an opportunity to connect.
So moms are really important, and dads need to step up and do it.
Basically what Stephanie said.
Basically what Stephanie was saying. I kind of helped because she didn't feel like she could say dads are bad, but I can. Okay. As you were talking in the beginning, I thought I would love to just kind of hear like an encouragement or like, so imagine in your brain, Stephanie, the parent who's listening, who's like just overwhelmed, stressed out, sort of fits in that category of like chronically overwhelmed. What step would you encourage them with? What hope would you give them today in that moment of struggle?
Well, first of all, they're not alone. And I think what research shows, what we would know intuitively, is that parents in that situation feel a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And they really feel ashamed of being a burden if they ask for help.
Yeah.
And so to first of all, just say, there's no need for shame and you're not going to be a burden when you ask for help. And so that would be the first thing, is just acknowledging that and just seeing, really all of us we're living in a very anxious age.
Right.
And so a lot of us are struggling with these same things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then secondly, just getting that help, reaching out to community. If you're involved in a church, that's a great place to start to see what connections you can make there and what supports they have. And then having a close group of friends to lean on and ask for really even just practical things like, hey, could you bring a meal this week? Like we've had seasons that have been really stressful. It's not like anyone's in the hospital when you typically bring meals. It's just like we have a really lot going on. I've had some friends just bless us with meals. Like, how great is that?
Yes.
And so even just asking for really practical things can be just help you feel seen and supported.
Yeah. When we were fostering, we had like a meal group, and it was just like, it was one of those things that just was like, this is so incredible. On Tuesdays, it just shows up, and it's like, it's just something we don't have to think about. And it was super helpful in that season that was pretty overwhelming of like, thank you. Like this was, so there are simple little things. And I think on the opposite side of that, if you are the person who's going, I'm not feeling totally overwhelmed, but man, I can see my friend over there is having a hard time. Like a phone call, hey, I decided to bring you a coffee today. Like goes a long way.
Like I would just even want to encourage folks listening, maybe who are not feeling like in that really hard place. Like it's like, Lord, give me the eyes to see around me.
Yes.
There's someone that I can just reach out. Reach out. And it's so simple and makes a huge impact of that sense of, wow, this too shall pass. Whatever's going on, this too shall pass. So.
Yeah. That'd probably a great last thing was just keeping that perspective, the big picture perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, Stephanie, this has been so helpful and so wonderful. So thankful for you. And we got more.
Here we go.
This is not the end. So thank you to everyone who tuned in today, whether you're feeling the weight of the digital world or just trying to build a thicker community and you're feeling overwhelmed. We hope this episode gave you a sense of hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want everyone to remember this is a 2-part conversation. So we just covered some great research, and just make sure you tune in next week because we'll actually talk about some additional practical applications.
Yeah, I'm excited about next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. It is the best way to help parents find this community.
Yeah. And as always, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. We want to hear how you are implementing these practical ideas in your own family.
Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Steph.